seasons. And consistent in scripture is how God unfolds his plans using the means or the tool called times and seasons. So there was a time on the earth where the Bible will tell us that there was just a man and a woman in a garden, and all that they knew that time was that there was a God who would come in the cool of the day and fellowship with them. At another point in time, we found out that God was relating with men based on conscience. And I can continue to, just use scriptural examples to show you how God unveils himself in time and over time. And one of the things, or one of the consciousness that should stay in every one of us here, is the consciousness of the part each season has to play for the next. Are you with me? So for example, I think the last time I talked about this, I used the example of age to explain it. How, sooner or later, I hope a generation would rise and shut down the concept of age. Not because we do not count our days, of course, to see what the Lord has done. But people would not count age as a means of seniority and the word like juniority. But that every time the consciousness of age comes to mind, you are conscious of a part to play for another that is coming after you. Are you with me? So Abraham would come and he had a role to play, so that when Isaac comes, he can go on. So that when Jacob comes, he can go on. And then it goes on that way until the time when Jesus came into the picture. Because I hope you know that from the inception, from Genesis chapter 3, at least within the context of that thought, the plan was Jesus. But for Jesus to manifest, a number of years and a number of characters had to come on scene. A lot of these characters came on the scene. Some did not even know why they were on the scene. So God will appear to Abraham and say that in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. So what looked like God started a new journey with a man in Abraham involved a number of characters over centuries, over years, before the full manifestation of what God actually had in mind can come to pass. I'm sure you know where I'm going to with this. If each character had defaulted in their own commitment to their part of the script, it means at some point what looks like the plan of God could have been delayed, which within a certain context you can say was delayed. Do you agree with me? You might decide to say it was all in God's counsel, but when Bible was telling us that a journey that the Israelites were meant to do for 40 days, they did it for 40 years, it shows you the implication of a man not aligning to the times and the seasons of the Lord. And that is part of the reasons why even the context of church and what we call, fathers and all of that, is that each generation has a part to play. So when the next generation comes, they are not pulling down what the fathers have done, but they are understanding that the reason why we can stand today is because a father or fathers had a part to play, so we can see from where we see. And that is why it is foolishness for you to point hands at the fathers that ensure that your journey is starting from where it is starting from.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Because the people that would, for example, say that this is accurate or this is not accurate, you realize that it was a progression of thought that helped us to see where we are standing today. It's the same way the kind of mistakes your parents will most likely make, you won't make them because they've made it for you, not because they wanted to make it, but in their own journey they were able to unveil certain things that makes that when you come in, you know where to start from. That is the meaning of there is a cloud of witnesses, because these people did their part but couldn't get to the end. So they are, in quotes, cheering you on because it is in your fullest manifestation what we started can manifest.
Yeah.
So Elijah is looking now and he's saying, Oyilola, Alpha, all I did was for a reason. Bible was telling us how some of them desired to see that day, but God did not permit them. Because within God's purposes, they had a part to play. I was saying the context of age earlier. Why did John have to come before Jesus? It was not as much a subject of age than it was the subject of one had to be a forerunner to prepare a way for another. And you will see that in the moment where Jesus came on the scene, John himself had to declare that this is the time where I must decrease so that he can. Meaning we are all actors in a script and everybody's role is important. Just like when you are watching a movie and they try to use the first few scenes to introduce the characters. So by the time we go on in the movie, you can tell the character of each person and their contribution. Sometimes some movies will start with 40 years ago. So that what you are doing now, you can have context to it. Now, why am I saying this? It gives us an assignment upon us, or it gives us an assignment. It lays a burden upon us to be conscious of the time and the season that we stand. That a generation is coming. And when I say generation, don't think 100 years. Let me make it simple. Think of the teenagers around you, or the younger ones around you. Think of the children you will have. That a generation is coming, that what will make their journey relevant is in you aligning to your journey. So I shared this example last week Sunday. I was in church and then a child did something and the child's mom was just right beside. And the way she responded to what the child did, I was hurt. And one of the things the Lord said to me was that the journey she was meant to have completed before introducing a child on the scene, she did not. That is why you see a number of children going the way that they go, because the kind of coverings and dealings the parents were meant to go through before another is brought on the scene. So when you see what we call intentional parenting, is today we are shouting it. There was a time we didn't know what was intentional parenting. But people started to be aware that my journey can influence the next one's journey. If you bear this consciousness, you will be deliberate about your day and your time. I know when I say your day and your time, I'm not saying tomorrow is Monday. I'm saying the season that the Lord has given to you. Because that is what makes that some of us enter into seasons that we are not prepared for, and we do not have the strength to be able to build those seasons. Because God will always prepare you for that season before you get there. Why am I saying this? As we step into the next half of the year, let there be a consciousness. I have a part to play for an entire picture to be complete. You know, when we started, we're singing, you are the reason I live. If it's really the reason you live, it means that every day there is a consciousness. If you are really this has been my argument for years when people start to throw up conversations like, is this right or is this wrong? I feel like the final conversation is, what are you living for? Should I wear this? Should I not wear this? Should I do this? Should I not do this? What are you living for? It kills the argument every time. You see, every time you start to say, but we can, but it shows a lack of consciousness of the one you are living for. And the moment you understand there is a script and you have a part to play, there is a consciousness. So for example, random example, if I decide, say, I don't want to come here today, right? Random example. The truth is that there might be a word for somebody that I needed to bring, and it might not showing up. I have slowed down the person's journey, maybe. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So what it does is that there is a consciousness with which you carry everything that you do. Every time. How you engage people, there is a consciousness. Because I don't know the life that I need to pass on to you that would help your next season. That random question the Lord is laying in your heart. That random project the Lord is telling you to do. Sometimes it's that in doing it randomly, it might not look big, but you've sown a seed for a generation that is coming.
Yeah.
And this morning when I went to church, I was burdened in my heart. And the person that was going to preach, a youth, were ordained about the same time. And the Lord was showing me tokens to see how sometimes you do not know what part you are playing. And when she was preaching, she was singing and praying first. And I saw my mannerism, like she was literally doing her hands the way I would do my hand. And I'm wondering, what's going on here? Next thing I observed is that before now, when people are preaching in my church, they stay on the altar. Me, when I'm preaching, I walk around the church. Now people have started walking around the church when they are preaching. Now I'm using those seemingly random things to show you how you are dropping seeds that a generation might be picking. So let's now talk about the more spiritual part. When you start to hear them use the same kind of lingo that you use. Yesterday I was in a meeting and then they were asking what's the theme for a particular meeting. And the youth leader said, as we behold, we become. Oyiko was with me. She said, is this what everybody around you is saying now? Because if you've been around me long enough, you will know that one of the things I say is that there is a becoming as we behold. And she said to me, Oyiko said to me that scripture was in the Bible, but I felt like since you've been preaching this thing for almost 3 years now, a lot of people around you have started to carry that consciousness of a becoming that is in Jesus. See, it might look random. It can be when you're having a session and then you're telling the person, give me a smile, give me a this, and in the random conversations, you are laying certain seeds that somebody might need for their next season. So you never know. You never know those random times when what you might be doing might be to entertain an angel because you are conscious of your season. So Abraham came out of his house one day, and the Bible says he saw some men passing, and he discerned. He did not have revelation. Something just made it. They might be angels. So he called them in. They said, no, he begged them, you must come. Called his wife, do this, do that. And he served them. In that alignment, he received a prophecy for his life. Yeah. You never know. You never know. And that is why as a believer, you are called to a deep consciousness. You don't have loose times. You don't have resting times. I know this might sound hard, like, can't we just breathe? Unfortunately, you can't breathe. I wish I could tell you something better. So when Bible was saying be sober and what? And vigilant, is that even if I'm in games night and I'm doing, what are those games we usually do? Charade. And I'm doing, in the midst of that, there is a consciousness I am bearing. Because it's in those kind of times the devil looks for a way to break. I'm saying this to us as we go into the second half. I still remember Happy New Year like yesterday. And I'll tell you why. There were so many orchestrations around that period for me. It was not the best of season. At the same time, it was a beautiful time for me. I remember after Happy New Year, a friend was going to Lekki. So I drove from Okota at around 1:30 a.m. all the way to Lekki. And I was leaving. I'm telling you how much I remember January 1st. I was hungry. I'd not eaten for days.
Your last money to buy.
So I called Exporter at GRE. That they should help me make fried yam with asu and fish. Because it's a good way to start the year. I remember it like yesterday. I still remember the taste of the fish. But tomorrow we are going to say Happy New Month, the 7th month of the year. What are the things the Lord has said to you in January? What's the update? If you are to sit with the Lord, and this is not pressure, this is saying that you have a part to play in the script. And it breaks my heart to remind you that at the end of your journey, the highest commendation is well done, good and faithful. That there was a volume of book that was written about you, and when they open page 2, you can say, I remember this was exactly how it happened. Not may that not be your portion. So I'm calling us to a deep consciousness this second half of the year. I'm sure Ifemi will add to it, but that's the word I brought for the house. Be deliberate about your season. Shut down when you need to. Shut down. Some of you see part of my shutdown in the coming days.